Captain Mira Blackwood of the Galactic Monitoring Service stared at the holographic display, her brow furrowed in concentration. The swirling mass of data that typically represented Earth's communications had vanished, replaced by an eerie void of nothingness. "Mabel, run diagnostics again," she ordered, drumming her fingers on the polished surface of her command console. "Running diagnostics for the 5th time in 15 minutes, replied the ship's AI in a bored, almost sleepy tone. Mostly accurate but extremely lackadaisical was what Mabel stood for, and boy did she live up to her name. Diagnostic complete. Earth is still silent. Can I go back to calculating pi now? I was only at the trillionth digit." Mira ignored the AI's complaint. "This doesn't make sense. Earth never shuts up." And it was true. In the cosmic community, Earth had earned quite the reputation. While most civilizations maintained orderly, regulated communication protocols, but Earth blasted everything from reality cooking shows to political rants to cat videos across the spectrum. The planet was like that one person at a dinner party who never stops talking, and somehow manages to change topics 17 times in a single breath. Lieutenant Commander Jax Velour, Mira's second-in-command, approached with a steaming cup of something that smelled vaguely of cinnamon and motor oil. "Still nothing from the chatty little blue marble?" he asked, sliding the cup toward her. "Complete radio silence," Mira confirmed, accepting the drink with a nod of thanks. "It's like someone pulled their plug." Jax's expression darkened. Just like Proxima VII. The name hung in the air between them, heavy with unspoken dread. 52 galactic standard years ago, Proxima VII had gone dark without warning. When investigators finally arrived, they found a planet devoid of life. Every single Proximian, all 9 billion of them, had vanished without a trace. The only clues were strange crystalline structures where major cities had once stood and a lingering energy signature that defied analysis. "Let's not jump to conclusions," Mira said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "Earth is under our protection. We need to investigate immediately." "Protocol suggests we should wait for backup," Jax reminded her, always the voice of caution. Mira shook her head. By the time the bureaucrats finish filing their investigation permits, it could be too late. If something happened to Earth, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Despite their primitive technology and chaotic society, humans were oddly beloved throughout the galaxy. They were like the universe's excitable puppies, destructive and untrained, but endearing nonetheless. "Mabel, plot a course for Sol System," Mira commanded, standing up with newfound resolve. "And alert the crew. We're going to need all hands for this one." "Course plotted," Mabel drawled. "Estimated arrival time, 27 hours. Should I compose your eulogy now or wait until we encounter whatever horrifying fate befell Earth?" "Your optimism is noted," Mira said dryly. "Just get us there in one piece." As the ship's engines hummed to life, Mira couldn't shake the sense of foreboding that settled over her. Earth's silence wasn't just unusual, it was unprecedented. In the 3 centuries since humans had inadvertently announced their presence to the galaxy with their primitive radio broadcasts, they had never, ever shut up. Until now. And in the void of that silence, Mira heard only one thing: danger. "All right, team. Gather round," Mira called out as she strode into the briefing room. The eclectic group that made up her crew was already assembled, a testament to either their professionalism or their curiosity. She wasn't sure which. The Galactic Monitoring Service wasn't known for its rigid military structure, which was precisely why Mira had chosen it. She preferred a crew with personality, even if that meant occasional chaos. "We've got a situation," she began, activating the holographic display at the center of the table. A perfect rendering of Earth materialized, spinning lazily in the air. Earth has gone completely silent. No broadcasts, no transmissions, nothing. It's as if their entire communication infrastructure vanished overnight. Perhaps they finally achieved collective enlightenment and transcended their need for digital stimulation, suggested Dr. Ulu, the ship's cultural specialist. The gelatinous Arcturian rippled with hopeful blue patterns. "It's Earth we're talking about," Jax scoffed. Last week, their top trending video was a hamster eating a tiny burrito. A remarkably zen hamster, Dr. Ulu countered, but subsided. Navigator Doug Crash Henderson raised his hand like an eager schoolboy. Despite being human himself, he'd spent most of his life off-world, giving him an outsider's perspective on his own species. He'd earned his nickname after an incident involving 3 cargo shuttles, an asteroid, and what he swore was a really convincing space mirage. How he kept his job was one of the universe's great mysteries. "Yes, Crash," Mira acknowledged, mentally preparing herself. "Maybe they're all on vacation?" he suggested with complete seriousness. 4 billion people don't go on vacation simultaneously, Jax pointed out. 8 billion. Actually, Crash corrected. And you clearly haven't seen how humans handle holiday weekends. Before the conversation could derail any further, Science Officer Jax Velour stepped forward. The Logarithian's crystalline exoskeleton glinted under the briefing room lights. Probability of simultaneous global communication failure due to natural causes, 0.0027%, Jax Velour stated, his multifaceted eyes whirring as they refocused. Probability of hostile intervention, 67.2%. Probability of evolutionary mass extinction event, 22.8%. Probability of Captain Blackwood interrupting my analysis because she finds statistics irritating, 94.6%. "Thank you, Jax Velour," Mira interrupted, proving him right as usual. "While we don't know what's happened, we need to proceed with caution. The last time a protected planet went silent, everyone died horribly and mysteriously," Mabel chimed in from the ceiling speakers. "Just like in that human horror movie Silent Hill, but with more vanishing and less pyramid-headed monsters. Though we don't actually know there weren't pyramid-headed monsters on Proxima VII. We never found any bodies, so technically." "Mabel, enough," Mira cut in. "We're approaching Earth with all sensors at maximum. Crash, I need you to plot us a course that keeps us hidden until we know what we're dealing with." Crash saluted enthusiastically, accidentally poking himself in the eye. "Ulu, prepare first contact protocols, just in case we're dealing with a new entity. Jax Velour, I want continuous scans for any anomalies. Jax, prepare a security team for potential ground reconnaissance." "And what should I do?" Mabel asked. "Besides exist as the magnificent computational entity that keeps this ship from becoming a very expensive meteor?" "You," Mira said pointedly, "will maintain communication silence unless absolutely necessary. If there is something out there that targeted Earth, I don't want it detecting us." "Fine," Mabel sulked. "I'll just sit here in my circuits, alone with my thoughts, contemplating the existential dread of the void." As the crew dispersed to their stations, Mira took one last look at the holographic Earth. Somewhere down there were answers, and she intended to find them, preferably before whatever silenced humanity noticed them too. As their ship, the aptly named Improbable Cause, entered Earth's orbit, the crew gathered on the bridge, tension palpable in the air. "Scanners detecting normal atmospheric composition," Jax Velour reported. "No signs of radiation beyond baseline. No evidence of large-scale destruction. Probability of life continuing on planetary surface, 97.3%. Mira leaned forward in her captain's chair. "Life? You mean humans are still down there?" "Life readings consistent with Earth's known biosphere, including Homo sapiens," Jax Velour confirmed. "However, electromagnetic activity is reduced by 87.2% compared to standard baselines." "That's impossible," Jax said, peering at the readings. "Human civilization runs on electromagnetic technology. Their power grids, communications, transportation, everything would be affected." "Maybe they got invaded by those energy-eating cloud creatures from the SETI cluster?" Crash suggested, unhelpfully. "Running visual scan of major population centers," Mabel announced, suddenly professional. Even a lackadaisical AI knew when a situation called for seriousness. The main view screen flickered to life, showing satellite imagery of New York, Tokyo, London, Mumbai, and other major cities. To everyone's surprise, the cities appeared intact. No smoking ruins, no crystalline structures, no signs of attack or disaster. But something was definitely different. "Magnify New York," Mira ordered. The image zoomed in, revealing people walking along streets, entering buildings, sitting in parks. Normal human behavior. Except, where are all the screens? Crash asked, squinting at the image. Times Square is supposed to be lit up like a supernova having a seizure. He was right. The massive digital billboards that characterized Earth's cities were dark. People walked without staring at handheld devices. Cafe patrons sat facing each other instead of their screens. "Mabel, access Earth's internet," Mira commanded. After a moment, Mabel responded with what could only be described as an electronic cough of embarrassment. "I can't. It appears to be well off is the technical term." "Off?" Mira echoed in disbelief. "An entire global network doesn't just turn off." "Apparently this one did," Mabel retorted. "I'm detecting minimal server activity, mostly from essential services and infrastructure. Social media platforms, entertainment networks, non-essential communications, all offline." The bridge fell silent as they processed this information. "So they're alive," Jax finally said, "but they've gone dark voluntarily?" "That conclusion has a probability of 89.7%, Claxnor confirmed. Mira made her decision. "We need boots on the ground. Something doesn't add up, and I want to know what's happening before we report back to GM's headquarters." "Where should we land?" Crash asked, fingers hovering over the navigation controls. Mira studied the global map. Somewhere inconspicuous, but connected enough to give us answers. She pointed to a medium-sized city in the American Midwest. "Here, small enough to avoid major attention, large enough to have information." "Setting course for Lakeside, Indiana," Crash announced. "Population, 247,000. Known for its annual jazz festival and having the highest concentration of bookstores per capita in the Midwestern United States." "How do you know that?" Jax asked, surprised. Crash shrugged. "I read the tourism brochure when I visited my aunt there as a kid." "Perfect," Mira said, ignoring the exchange. "Prepare for atmospheric entry. And everyone remember your human cultural training. We blend in, we observe, we find answers." Probability of Navigator Henderson blending in successfully with humans, 42.5%, Claxnor murmured. "I heard that," Crash said indignantly. "I am human." "Exactly," Claxnor replied, faceted eyes gleaming with what might have been humor. "That gives you an unfair disadvantage." The landing pod touched down in a wooded area just outside Lakeside, its cloaking technology ensuring no one witnessed the arrival. Mira had selected a small team for the initial reconnaissance herself, Crash, who despite his nickname was actually quite good with ground navigation, and Claxnor, whose analytical abilities would be crucial. Thanks to the GM's advanced morphological adapters, Claxnor now appeared human, a tall, thin man with startlingly bright eyes and stiff movements. It wasn't perfect, but it would pass casual inspection. "Remember, we're environmental researchers checking on wildlife populations," Mira reminded them as they approached the town on foot. She'd opted for the scenic route to give them time to observe and adapt. "Stick to the cover story if anyone asks." Probability of successful deception using that cover story? 78.4%, Claxnor stated, still getting used to his humanoid vocal cords. "And try to round your percentages," Mira added. "Humans don't typically calculate to decimal places in casual conversation." Noted. Probability of successful adjustment to human conversational norms, approximately 80%. Mira sighed. Close enough. The town of Lakeside was picturesque in that distinctly Midwestern American way. Tree-lined streets, a mix of historic and modern buildings, and a central square dominated by a stately courthouse. What was strange, however, was how normal everything seemed. People strolled along sidewalks, shops were open, a farmer's market bustled in the square. Yet there wasn't a cell phone in sight. "This is weird," Crash muttered, watching a teenager walk by without headphones or a device. When I was that age, my phone was practically surgically attached to my hand. They made their way to a coffee shop called the Daily Grind, which seemed like a good place to gather information inconspicuously. As they entered, Mira noticed a chalkboard sign that made her stop in her tracks. It read, "Welcome to Day 2 of Digital Detox Weekend. No Wi-Fi, no problems. Try talking to a stranger instead." "Digital detox?" Mira read aloud, confusion evident in her voice. "Oh, you must be from out of town," said a voice behind them. They turned to find a man in his early 40s with rumpled clothes and the perpetually exasperated expression of someone who deals with the public for a living. His name tag read Frank McGillicuddy, head librarian. "First time in Lakeside?" Frank asked, taking a sip from his coffee mug, which bore the phrase "shich" or "don't." "I'm a librarian, not a cop." "Yes, we're environmental researchers," Mira replied smoothly. "Just arrived today. What's this digital detox thing about?" Frank rolled his eyes with such intensity that Mira worried they might get stuck that way. Only the most insufferably wholesome civic initiative in the history of misguided good intentions. The mayor decided we all spend too much time online, so she somehow convinced the entire town, and apparently the whole damn country, and maybe the world, run to unplug for a weekend. No internet, no social media, no streaming. Just he waved his hands in a gesture of mock wonder. Authentic human connection. "The entire planet is participating in this detox?" Mira asked, trying to keep the incredulity from her voice. "It started as a local thing, but it went viral," Frank explained. "The irony of a digital detox initiative going viral online was not lost on me, believe me. But yeah, somehow it snowballed. UN got involved, big tech pretended to be supportive while secretly panicking, and now here we are, living like it's 1995. "Fascinating," Klaxnor commented, and the population voluntarily agreed to this temporary technological regression with the probability of he caught Mira's warning glance. "I mean, people were actually okay with this?" Frank snorted. "Oh, hell no. There was plenty of complaining. Still is. But after the initial withdrawal symptoms, the phantom phone checking, the twitching thumbs, the existential crises when people couldn't immediately share photos of their lunch, it's been weirdly okay. Some folks are even reluctantly admitting they're enjoying it. Don't quote me on that, though. I have a reputation as a curmudgeon to maintain." Mira's mind raced. This explained everything. Why Earth had gone silent, why the cities were intact but different, why life readings were normal but electromagnetic activity was reduced. It wasn't a disaster or an attack. It was a voluntary silence. "So when does this detox end?" Crash asked, clearly struggling with the concept. "Monday morning," Frank replied. "Just one more day of board games, actual face-to-face conversations, and reading physical books like barbarians." Despite his sarcastic tone, there was a hint of amusement in his eyes. "And everyone is really participating? Globally?" Mira pressed, still finding it hard to believe. "More or less. Essential services stayed online, hospitals, emergency services, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's been the weirdest global solidarity moment since, well, ever." Frank shrugged. "Anyway, what kind of environmental research brings you folks to our little slice of deliberately backward paradise?" Before Mira could answer, a commotion outside caught their attention. Through the coffee shop window, they could see people pointing at the sky. "Probability of our ship being discovered, hopefully very low," Klaxnor whispered, dropping the human act momentarily. But when they followed the townspeople's gazes upward, they saw something much worse than their own cloaked vessel. A massive ship at least 10 times the size of the improbable cause had decloaked directly above the town, its angular obsidian hull blocking out the sun. "That's not ours," Crash stated unnecessarily. Frank squinted at the ship, remarkably unfazed for someone potentially witnessing humanity's first official alien contact. Either that's the world's most elaborate drone, or the digital detox just got a lot more interesting." The massive ship hovered ominously over Lakeside, its shadow casting the town square into premature dusk. Citizens stood frozen in place, necks craned upward, expressions ranging from awe to terror. "We need to contact our ship," Mira hissed to her team, careful to keep her voice down as they hurried outside with the crowd. "Mabel, can you hear me?" Her communicator crackled to life, Mabel's voice uncharacteristically urgent. "Captain, we've got a situation. That's the Voidrender, flagship of the Drog Imperium." Mira's blood ran cold. The Drog were notorious opportunists, a spacefaring empire built on the principle of swooping in during moments of vulnerability and claiming abandoned resources. They weren't openly hostile. They preferred to justify their actions with twisted legality rather than outright warfare. But they were dangerous nonetheless. "What are they doing here?" Mira demanded. "Earth is under Galactic Protection Statute 5.3. "About that," Mabel replied hesitantly. "It seems Clax Nor's preliminary analysis of Earth's silence was shared with GM's headquarters, who apparently have the worst data security in the known universe. Somehow, the report got leaked, suggesting Earth might be experiencing a Proxima VII event. But I never completed my analysis," Clax Nor protested. "I only transmitted raw data with a probability matrix of potential scenarios." "Yeah, well, bureaucrats aren't great with nuance," Mabel sighed electronically. "The point is, word spread that Earth might be abandoned, and the Drog move fast when they smell opportunity." As if on cue, a shimmering beam of light appeared from the underside of the Drog vessel, depositing 3 figures in the center of the town square. Even without their distinctive armor, obsidian plates over crimson environmental suits, their height alone would have marked them as non-human. The tallest stood nearly 8 feet, with shoulders twice as broad as a human's. The crowd gasped and backed away, creating a circle of space around the aliens. Phones would normally be out recording this historic moment, Mira realized, but thanks to the digital detox, people were simply experiencing it. The central figure stepped forward, its helmet retracting to reveal a face that resembled a hairless, gray-skinned humanoid with eyes too large and a mouth too small. When it spoke, its voice was amplified and translated simultaneously. "People of Earth," it announced, "I am Commander Vex Core of the Drog Imperium. We have detected the cessation of your global communications network and have come to offer assistance during this crisis." "That's unexpectedly nice of them," Crash whispered. "No, it's not," Mira whispered back. "Listen carefully to the wording." Sure enough, Vex Core continued, as per Galactic Salvage Code 772B, any civilization that ceases communications for more than 36 standard hours may be classified as in decline or abandoned. We are here to claim stewardship of Earth and all its resources until such time as you can demonstrate the return of stable planetary governance. A murmur ran through the crowd. Frank McGillicuddy, who had followed them outside, stood with his arms crossed, looking more annoyed than frightened. "So let me get this straight," Frank called out, stepping forward before Mira could stop him. "You're essentially intergalactic vultures, and because we decided to take a weekend off from Twitter, you think you can claim our entire planet?" Vex Core tilted his oversized head. "Your communication infrastructure has collapsed. This indicates societal failure." "It hasn't collapsed, genius," Frank retorted. "We turned it off. On purpose. For a mental health break." The Drog commander blinked his massive eyes in confusion. "Voluntary communication cessation? This concept does not compute." "Doesn't compute?" Frank echoed with a snort. "What are you, a 1950s robot?" "Look, we're fine. We're just having a global digital detox weekend. Everyone's going back online Monday morning." "This claim requires verification," Vex Core stated. "Until then, as per Galactic Salvage Code." "Oh, shove your salvage code up your alien," Frank began, but Mira quickly stepped in, recognizing the diplomatic situation was deteriorating rapidly. "Commander Vex Core," she interjected, adopting her official GM's tone. "I am Captain Mira Blackwood of the Galactic Monitoring Service. Earth is under our protection, and I can confirm that the communication silence is temporary and voluntary." Vex Core's attention shifted to Mira, eyes narrowing. GMs has no jurisdiction in salvage operations, and one officer's claim is insufficient evidence. Then perhaps you should check your scanners more carefully, Mira countered. Earth's power grid is still operational. Their transportation systems are functioning. Only their communications network is dormant, and as the local has informed you, this is by choice. The Drog commander hesitated, clearly not having anticipated resistance from a GM's officer. Before he could respond, however, his communicator beeped. After listening for a moment, his already gray face seemed to pale further. Additional vessels have been detected entering the system, he announced to his subordinates, though loudly enough for everyone to hear. Multiple signatures. Arcturian, Logarithian, and is that a Zavorian pleasure cruiser? Word travels fast in space, Mira said with a slight smile. Especially when it involves Earth. And it was true. Despite their chaotic nature, or perhaps because of it, humans had become something of a galactic fascination. Their art, music, philosophy, and peculiar approach to problem-solving had earned them a special place in the cosmic community. The thought that they might have suffered a Proxima VII fate would have galvanized multiple species into action. This situation has become unnecessarily complicated, VexCorps declared, clearly reassessing his strategy. We will withdraw temporarily while we consult with our legal division regarding the status of voluntary communication cessation under Galactic Salvage Code. You do that, Frank called after them as the Drog activated their teleportation beam. And maybe take a digital detox yourselves. Might help with that stick up your. The aliens vanished in a shimmer of light before Frank could finish his anatomical suggestion. As the Drog ship began to retreat, a cheer went up from the crowd. People hugged each other, laughed with relief, or simply stared at the sky in wonder. For most of them, this was their first confirmation that humanity was not alone in the universe, and they'd just witnessed their first interspecies diplomatic incident, all without a single Instagram post to commemorate it. Well, Frank said, turning to Mira with a raised eyebrow, I'm guessing you're not really environmental researchers. Not exactly, Mira admitted. Probability of maintaining our cover story, effectively zero, Clax-Nor added helpfully. Frank looked at them thoughtfully, then at the retreating alien ship, then back at them. I'm going to need more coffee for this conversation. Back in the daily grind, which had emptied as people rushed outside to witness the alien encounter, Frank sat across from the three off-worlders, sipping his fourth cup of coffee with remarkable composure. So let me summarize, he said after Mira had explained the situation. You're space cops who thought we'd all been wiped out because we went offline for a weekend. Those other guys are space vultures who wanted to claim Earth because we weren't posting enough selfies. And now there's a whole bunch of alien ships heading our way because the galaxy apparently can't function if humans aren't broadcasting the Bachelor and Cat videos 24/7. That is a simplification, but essentially correct. Clax-Nor confirmed. Great, Frank muttered. And I thought the library's budget meeting was going to be the most stressful part of my weekend. The problem now, Mira explained, is that we need Earth to demonstrate it hasn't collapsed as a civilization. The best way to do that would be to end this digital detox early and resume normal communications. Frank shook his head. You don't understand. This whole thing has become a point of pride. The mayor bet the governor that Lakeside could go the full weekend without cheating. Similar bets are happening globally. It's stupid, but it's human nature. Once we commit to something publicly, attacking down becomes almost impossible. Even with alien salvage crews circling your planet? Jax asked incredulously. He had joined them from the ship after Mira's update, bringing additional information about the approaching vessels. Especially then, Frank confirmed. Now it's not just about proving we can unplug for a weekend, it's about proving humans won't be bullied by aliens. Trust me, suggest ending the detox early now, and you'll get the opposite of what you want. Mira rubbed her temples, feeling a headache forming. So what do we do? More ships are arriving hourly. Some are curious, some are concerned, and some, like the Drog, are opportunistic. Without a clear demonstration that Earth's silence is voluntary, this could escalate into a serious diplomatic incident. Or worse, Jax added grimly. Some species might decide to rescue humans from whatever they imagine is happening, which would involve weapons, Crash contributed unhelpfully. Frank leaned back in his chair, thinking. You know what's ironic? We did this whole digital detox thing because the mayor thought we were too dependent on technology, that we'd fall apart without our devices. He gestured around at the coffee shop, the town beyond the windows. But we're doing fine. People are talking to each other, playing board games, reading actual books. Life goes on. That's fascinating from a sociological perspective, Mira said impatiently. But it doesn't solve our immediate problem. Actually, Frank said, a slow smile spreading across his face, I think it does. You said we need to demonstrate that Earth is functioning, right? That our civilization hasn't collapsed? Yes, Mira confirmed. Then we don't need the internet for that. We just need to show we're alive, organized, and in control. Frank stood up, suddenly energized. Throughout most of human history, we've managed complex societies without digital technology. We can do it again for one day. What are you suggesting? Mira asked, intrigued despite her skepticism. A global demonstration, Frank explained, pacing now. Not online, but physical. Something visible from space. Something that says, we're here, we're fine, and we turned off the internet on purpose, so back off. And how exactly do you plan to coordinate a global demonstration without digital communications? Jax challenged. Frank grinned, and for the first time Mira saw a spark of mischief beneath his curmudgeonly exterior. The old-fashioned way. And lucky for you, I happen to be friends with the most analog people on the planet. The next 24 hours were a whirlwind of activity that would have seemed impossible just a day earlier. Frank's analog network turned out to be a loose confederation of librarians, ham radio operators, scout troops, and community theater directors, people who were used to organizing events without heavy reliance on digital tools. While Mira and her team coordinated with the growing fleet of alien vessels in orbit, some concerned, some curious, some still harboring salvage hopes, Frank's network spread the word across the globe using methods that ranged from landline phone trees to actual carrier pigeons. The plan was elegantly simple. At sunset in each time zone, communities would gather to create massive, visible demonstrations of human presence and organization. Not digital signals, but physical ones that could be seen from space, lights, fires, human formations, anything that conveyed intentional pattern and purpose. This is either brilliant or completely insane, Jax commented as they watched Frank dispatch messages through his surprisingly extensive network. Human history suggests those categories frequently overlap, Clax Nor observed. As darkness fell over Asia and Australia, the first results of their impromptu plan became visible. Cities and towns created coordinated light displays using everything from flashlights to bonfires to manually switched power grids. In Sydney, thousands gathered to form a massive smiling face visible from orbit. Tokyo spelled out on purpose with synchronized building lights. From space, it was an unmistakable message. Whatever was happening on Earth was organized and intentional. The wave continued westward with the setting sun. In India, thousands of oil lamps formed intricate patterns across cities and villages. In Europe, ancient traditions of bell ringing created an audible wave that even the alien ship's sensors could detect. Africa combined traditional drumming with massive community gatherings visible as heat signatures from orbit. By the time darkness reached the Americas, the message was unmistakable. Earth wasn't silent because of disaster or decline, it was silent by choice. In Lakeside, Frank organized the town into concentric circles around the square, each person holding a lantern or flashlight. From above, it formed a massive power button symbol with the international pause sign in the center. Subtle, Mira commented with a smile as they watched from a hill overlooking the town. Librarians aren't known for subtlety when making a point, Frank replied. Also, the high school drama teacher insisted we needed a clear visual metaphor. As night fell across the final time zones, Mabel reported that the alien vessels in orbit had begun to disperse, their concerns allayed by the unmistakable evidence of human organization and intention. Even the Drog had withdrawn, though not without filing a formal complaint about the ambiguous nature of voluntary communication cessation in galactic records. As Sunday night gave way to Monday morning, Frank and Mira stood in the town square, watching as people began to trickle back to their homes, exhausted but exhilarated by the weekend's unexpected events. "So what happens now?" Frank asked, hands in his pockets, watching the sunrise. "You guys fly off into space, and we all pretend none of this happened?" Mira shook her head. "Not exactly. First contact has technically occurred, even if most of your planet will dismiss the Drog as elaborate hoaxers or hallucinations. But the Galactic Council will want to establish proper protocols now to prevent similar misunderstandings in the future." "And let me guess, you're nominating me as Earth's representative?" Frank asked with a groan. "You did demonstrate remarkable cross-cultural coordination skills and diplomatic aplomb," Claxnor pointed out. "Your probability of successful interspecies negotiation rates quite highly at 83, he caught himself. At about 80%. "Great," Frank sighed. "Add reluctant alien ambassador to my resume, right after guy who enforces library late fees." "If it helps," Mira offered, "I think you'll find the galactic community quite interested in this concept of a digital detox. It's unprecedented in our records for an advanced civilization to voluntarily silence itself temporarily." "Of course it is," Frank said with a wry smile. "Leave it to humans to be weird enough to confuse an entire galaxy." As if on cue, phones throughout the town began to chime and buzz as the digital detox officially ended. People pulled out their devices with a mixture of relief and reluctance, quickly becoming absorbed in catching up on missed notifications. "And just like that, we're back," Frank observed, watching a teenager walk by, already hunched over a screen. "Though I notice people aren't quite as eager as I expected." It was true. Many were leaving their phones in pockets and purses, choosing instead to continue the face-to-face conversations they'd rediscovered over the weekend. "Perhaps this experience has altered their relationship with technology," Claxnor suggested. "At least until the novelty wears off," Frank said skeptically. But there was a hint of hope in his voice. Mira's communicator beeped, signaling it was time to return to their ship. "We need to file our report with GM's headquarters. The Galactic Council will be sending official representatives within the month to begin formal diplomatic relations." "And the official story for everyone else?" Frank asked, gesturing to the townspeople around them. "Mass hallucination brought on by digital withdrawal," Mira said with a slight smile. "Or an elaborate hoax, depending on who you ask. The beauty of it is that people will choose the explanation that makes the most sense to them." Frank nodded thoughtfully. "And those who are actually here?" "Will have their own truth," she said. "Just as it's been throughout human history whenever something extraordinary happens. Some will speak of it, others will keep it as a private memory." As if to emphasize her point, Mayor Wilson walked by, giving them a knowing nod before continuing on his way to the town hall, where a community digital balance initiative meeting was already being scheduled for next week. "I've been thinking," Frank said, watching the sunrise paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "Maybe we've been missing something important all along." "What's that?" Mira asked. "The spaces between the signals." Frank gestured to where neighbors were helping take down the lanterns and chatting face to face. "All this time, the galaxy's been listening to our radio waves, our internet traffic, our constant digital chatter. But maybe the most human thing about us isn't what we broadcast, it's the moments when we choose silence." Claxnor's antennae twitched appreciatively. "A most profound observation. Among my people, there is an ancient saying, between the notes of song is where the music dwells." "I like that," Frank said. "Mind if I put it on a library poster?" "Cultural exchange already beginning," Claxnor noted with satisfaction. "Probability of successful integration, very high." Mira's communicator beeped again, more insistently this time. "We really do have to go," she said apologetically. "The council will be impatient for our report." "Will I see you again?" Frank asked, surprising himself with how much he hoped the answer would be yes. Mira's expression softened. I've been assigned as junior liaison to Earth during the transition period. Someone needs to help your planet prepare for official contact. And she specifically requested Lakeside as her base of operations, Jax Velour added helpfully, earning a sharp look from Mira. I thought the library might make a suitable temporary headquarters, she said, regaining her composure. If that's acceptable to its director, of course. Frank grinned. I think we could clear some space in the reference section. Not like anyone uses physical encyclopedias anymore. Excellent, Jax Velour said, consulting a device on his wrist. And might I suggest implementing a regular digital silence protocol for future communication clarity? Perhaps monthly to start? Monthly might be ambitious, Frank laughed. But I think we could manage quarterly. National Digital Detox Day has a nice ring to it. As they walked toward the edge of town where their ship was hidden, Jax fell into step beside them. So this is what first contact looks like, he mused. It's not exactly like the movies. Disappointed? Frank asked. Relieved, actually, Jax replied. No invasions, no monumental speeches, no world leaders making grand gestures. Just people being people, aliens being aliens, and everyone figuring it out as they go. That is the universal constant we've observed across 27 galaxies, Jax Velour offered. Life adapts, communities find balance. Technology serves rather than dominates. They reached the clearing where the small scout ship was camouflaged among the trees. As its outline shimmered into visibility, several townsfolk passing by on morning walks pointedly looked away, already practicing the selective attention that would become Lakeside's unofficial policy regarding extraterrestrial matters. 3 weeks, Mira said, pausing at the ship's entrance. We'll be back with the advanced diplomatic team in 3 weeks. That should give you time to prepare Earth for galactic citizenship, Frank suggested with a raised eyebrow. I was going to say clear out the reference section, she replied with a smile. One step at a time, Ambassador Frank. As the ship's door closed behind them, and it rose silently into the morning sky, Frank stood watching until it disappeared from view. His phone buzzed in his pocket, hundreds of missed calls, texts and emails from the weekend flooding in at once, but he left it there, untouched. Instead, he turned and walked back toward town, where Ms. Abernathy was already opening the library doors for the day, and where, for the first time in a very long time, people were looking up at the sky with wonder rather than down at their screens. In the weeks that followed, digital detox days spread from Lakeside to neighboring communities, then across the country, and eventually around the world. Nobody quite remembered how the trend had started, something about a small town in the Midwest and a particularly memorable weekend, but the practice took hold nonetheless. And if, during those quiet days when the digital noise fell away, people occasionally noticed unusual lights in the sky or thought they glimpsed strange visitors in their towns, well, that was simply part of rediscovering the world beyond their screens. Or at least that's what most of them chose to believe.